Welcome to the Beza Performance live stream. At Beza, we do executive disciplines for organizations that want to be world class. And I'm Marshall Henley, the president of Beza Performance. And today we're going to reintroduce the concept of net landed profit. And that's a lens that we use for impact analytics. And I've got Richard Sharpe, 30-year supply chain expert and co-founder of CAP Logistics, as well as the president and founder of Competitive Insights with us today. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you, Marshall. It's certainly a pleasure to be back.
Good to see you again here. And we see each other a lot, but maybe not in this format. So I always like to start by saying, hey, let's define this for folks. What is net landed profit?
Net landed profit is the ability to be able to look at the exact profitable performance of every product sold to every customer through every channel. And to do that, what you want to be able to do is be an all-inclusive number, meaning you have looked at all of your costs associated with the sourcing the product anywhere in the world, to be able to look at the transactions associated with that as the product moves through the supply chain, look at the revenues and all the way revenue is reduced for every product sold to every customer, and come up with a total cost to serve that is specific for every customer, every product in every channel, as well as the net landed profit, the performance of that product for every product sold to every customer. So it's really a deep dive into the performance associated with the operation.
So obviously, a lot of times when we interact with executives, they think they already have this data, and they do. Obviously, somehow that rolls up into their cost accounting measures.
Right.
So, what's the difference between the cost accounting they already have and what we're proposing? They take a look at actually avoiding cost accounting and moving in a net landed profit direction as it pertains to analytics.
Well, standard cost accounting is obviously a very good thing. It's, allowing you to run the business, but it's not getting you down to the specific performance of a particular product for a particular customer. So if people start to want to know that kind of information, what they'll often do is do what we call peanut butter spread, which is
Right.
they'll take the costs that are in the P&L and somehow spread them over the products or the customers. And the problem with that, of course, is that it's an estimate, it's not exact and specific, and therefore it tends to be not actionable.
Right. Yeah, you're not going to make a big, important, and maybe even bold decision if there's not a lot of confidence there. Well, that's
That's
something
right.
we'll be talking about quite a bit today. I think what we also have talked about in the past is sometimes the the problem focus is peanut buttered over. You can't see which clients you need to focus on. There
Right.
might be three or four clients, there might be 50 SKUs that are the problem, but you can't find them because there's
That's
too
right.
much peanut butter in the mix.
That's right. So let me give you a quick story on that.
Yeah.
We had a customer that was a manufacturer out of Chicago, a fairly large company, and they wanted to do exactly that. They wanted to go beyond the standard cost accounting and get moved to a very specific and actionable insights with regard to performance of every customer and every product. So they had 110,000 delivery locations. They were serving them through their own network of DCs and trucks. They used 3PLs, pretty complex network. So the very first question they wanted to ask with all of this complexity was how many of these customers out of 110,000 were giving us 80% of our profit? You want to take a guess, Marshall?
Well, 80-20 rule, 20%,
That's what
15%.
That's what most people say, but the
Right.
reality is that only 2,383 customers out of 110,000 were giving them
Hmm.
80% of their profit.
So 2 to 3%.
2 to 3, and they're
If you remove the
very
peanut butter, right? Like if the
right.
peanut butter were there, maybe it would still look like 20%, but
That's right. But their 11th best customer measured by revenue was totally unprofitable. And standard cost accounting had no visibility to that whatsoever. And that's really important because these times are tough, Marshall.
Yeah.
We've got these inflationary pressures, we've got
Right.
the issues of product shortages, resources are limited. And if you're going to be able to focus on how you can make the biggest impact for the organization, you need to know that information in order
Yeah.
to be able to look at what resources are applied to what customers, what products, et cetera. It's very, very important.
Well, so Doug Dedman of DDM Systems and I do the S&OP Thursday twice a month, and we talk about competitive insights approach, and net landed profit is a great lens there because what we're dealing with S&OP frequently, well, always really, it's the purpose of S&OP is to decide what your flow rates are going to be from the
Right,
supply side, and then figure out who you're going to serve with them. But typically in a constrained environment, right? I've got orders that exceed my ability to produce, so I have to buffer that with lead times. And another buffer is I might decide that I don't want to serve unprofitable clients or in profitable sectors, SKUs within unprofitable clients
right.
without a change of terms. So I think it's a missing component of, I mean, S&OP doesn't answer any of the questions that it forces you to answer. It just poses them. And net landed profit to me seems like one of the most rational approaches to some of the questions you need to answer with S&OP.
Well, that's absolutely right. And you want to be able to do it in such a way that you have trust in the information and that you can pinpoint what those opportunities are. You
Right.
don't want to have to go through a massive task of looking through report after report after report when you're doing it. As you design your cost to serve and your net landed profit solution, you want the system to work for you. So pinpoint those customers, as you just said, that are taking up a lot of resources and I'm making no money. Or
Right.
let's look at these products and decide what products we're actually going to continue to focus on. And with the shortages on products today that everybody is experiencing, you just can't treat everything, with a one size fits all strategy. It
Right.
just doesn't work.
Well, so we kind of promised we tell people that this is how to do this, right? How to do net
Right.
landed profit, and we're not going to be able to get into all of that today, but today we can at least level set. And so why don't we do that? Why don't we help people kind of understand what an overall approach to executing a net landed profit project or strategy to get to
Sure.
these types of numbers would look like? There you go.
So you want to keep it straightforward. And what you want to be able to do is follow these four steps, and I'll quickly run through each one. But it's really important to be able to have a methodology and a solution that provides that capability, a repeatable capability, because things change all the time. So let's
Sure.
start with step one. Step one is data. So everybody knows the term garbage in, garbage out. But now, when you're talking about an end to end supply chain, and you're looking at every product, every way that product traverses your operational network, you can be into the billions of transactions. And typically for us, for customers, about 4 billion transactions. So you want to be able to understand how you want to be able to track that information, where the sources of that information are, and be
Hmm.
able to ensure that every time you look at your cost to serve and your net landed profit, that it is a complete picture of the operation. So getting the data ready is essential. It's the foundation, if you will,
Yes.
for a solid cost to serve and profit solution.
So today we're going to dig a little deeper into the step one ready step, and we'll kind of describe what the components of that are. We'll cover off steps two, three, and et cetera in future pod or video, sorry, live streams, and we'll make sure that we tout those well. Didn't mean to interrupt, but just wanted to make sure folks know we are going to do a little deeper dive on step one ready today.
Yeah.
Also, just don't forget to like and subscribe so you can get to those future uh, live streams that we're going to do. We do these pretty much weekly, so Richard and I will be doing another one in June, and looking forward to have everybody visit with us again for that.
All right.
So sorry to
So
interrupt. Do you want to start on step two?
Yeah, let's move to step two. So you've got the data ready, right? And everybody feels that it can be trusted and used. So now what you want to do is what we call AIM. And that is, as you think about your cost to serve model for your specific organization, you don't want it to be cookie cutter. You want it to reflect the actual ways that your revenues are reduced through chargebacks or discounts. and all the
Hmm.
cost line items that are really important to you. And you want to be sure that as you have the data that is ready, you're using that to create a cost to serve and a actual net landed profit that is tailored to your organization. So that is AIM, and making sure those rules are well established and always used exactly the same way until the organization has made a decision they want to adjust something. So
Okay.
cross-functionally, everyone has agreed to the way you're going to treat cost and profit performance.
It's really defining what the net landed profit calculation looks like for the organization.
That's right. And if it's different by channel or different by region, but you want to be sure it really reflects your operation.
Right. Sorry, I jumped the gun on you here, but
No, no, that's perfect. So step three is fire. So now we have this cost and profit detail that goes again beyond standard cost accounting, and we want to be able to use it to solve problems today. So, as an example, what customers are we making money on? What customers are totally unprofitable? Same for products. Looking at ways that you've deployed inventory that are actually burdening your profit in a way that you didn't quite see before,
mhm.
or looking at profit leakage. There are many ways, risk management, looking at suppliers that are providing products that actually aren't performing that well. So there are a whole host of different ways that you can actually apply this information. We strongly suggest that you use the information to solve one or two of those problems in fire and not try to do all of that at once.
Right.
Really get the benefit of having that kind of information, let the organization see it, create a huge win, and then the organization will continue to support what you're doing and grow the use of that information.
And you have that you have the net landed profit data. You might need to refresh it, on a monthly basis, but you've got it. You've got the step two algorithm to kind of drive that data into the step three for another approach. You might look at
That's right.
a
And
different
that
solution.
leads us to step four. And step four, as we all know, the world is changing at a rapid pace. And so what you want to do is have all of this set up when you're actually looking at the ready, the aim, and the fire so that it's repeatable. And it's repeatable in a way that's very efficient, doesn't take a lot of time. Because again, if it becomes burdensome in time, oftentimes the whole effort is just,
Yeah.
kind of slips away, if you will.
Right.
Excuse me. So
No problem.
measure is saying, okay, we've updated the data. Did the decisions that we make are they working? And are there new opportunities that we didn't see before that we can take advantage of? So it's a cycle as you have in this graphic, and being able to look at those updates and be able to continue to gain competitive advantage.
So we've, for example, looked at risk to profit among highly profitable SKUs by supplier and
Right.
location, and we figured out there's 50 that we want to mitigate, so we offload those to a second supplier, or maybe we have a program that does that, and then you're measuring the results of that as you move
Right.
forward. Okay.
And that could be, which customers we made this change for this customer. It's now starting to
Okay.
perform better. We're not giving them the same day service. We're giving them service once a week. Or, the pricing that we were driving with our omni-channel with regard to that, those products being sold in e-commerce, just isn't working for this
Okay.
category of product. So all those things are very, very doable.
So we gain back some profit, but the CX numbers are as good or better than they were. So we know it's all going the right direction, and then eventually maybe we pivot to looking at inventory or some other
Yeah.
uh, step three
That's right.
approach. Okay,
Any part of the operation that affects cost or affects profit, eventually you want a cross-functional view of that in order to take full advantage of your data.
okay. Well, so that's the four steps, folks, and we'll come back to this every time we do one of these, just to level set that these are the four macro steps that you need to take. But I think uh, you've got some specifics we can get into on step one today that'll
Yes,
help people understand what that looks like.
sure.
Actually, I think I need to pull another screen up for you, so let me do that.
Okay, that's fine, Marshall.
Okay.
All right, so what we're looking at is our approach to the dashboard that we talked about. And there's four basic steps here. So our first step is to be able to collect the data. And you can see this is the data collection step, which I'll go into in more detail in a moment.
Okay.
But we're talking about a lot of information. And so what you want to be able to do is track that information, who is the owner of that information, and be able to know whether the data has been provided on time, is almost there, is late. But you want to, again, efficiently be able to know that you're about ready to do that refresh and be able to give that update to the organization. So that's data collection, which we'll do a little bit more detail. Then systematic data validation. So this is the machine learning of the process. This is where you're actually looking at the data itself. You're looking for variances in performance. So, the values of these data elements have gone up 50%. What's causing that? Is that right, or is that a mistake? And you want to be able to look at that using the power of the machine, the solution, the AI, if you will, or machine learning, whatever is the way you look at that,
Hmm.
and be able to identify those problems as quickly as possible. And again, get back to the organization and say, hey, we've got an issue here, and we need to be able to address that before we do the refresh. The next step is then transforming that data, which is this part right here. And we mentioned earlier that you want that cost to serve model, the calculation, and the net land profit to be tailored to your particular organization. So this is where we're doing that. We're actually using that data that has gone through the first two steps, and we're creating that cost to serve and net landed profit. But before we're actually going to release this information to the organization, because we absolutely want to be sure it's trusted and actionable, then we would recommend that you create one more step, and that is SME validation.
Okay.
And what that does is it's basically giving the people who know the operation really well an opportunity to look at that data, final check to say, hey, this information looks right. That is the way we moved our products. That is the way that we actually carried out our sales in that region, whatever it might be, and be able to be sure that they're willing to put their stamp of approval on that information. So
So
four
these are the
steps,
people that are trusted within their domain,
right?
the subject matter experts within their domain, so that the executives that are going to be authorizing maybe a big decision, such as service level commitments to some important clients, something like that,
Right.
they know that the data was sourced and blessed by the people that work with that data. That's part of the just
Absolutely.
emotional
Because
confidence.
the first time you don't do that and there is a problem with the data, people lose trust
Yeah.
in the information, and you can't afford to do that.
One number's wrong, they're all wrong. It's sort
Yeah,
of the yeah.
yeah,
All right,
that's
good.
great. So would you like to go into a little more detail on each one, Marshall?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful for the folks, just to see, what should you be doing as a tracking and then project management component for data collection,
Okay.
for example,
Well,
and
then
so on.
let's quickly walk through this. So the
And
first one is
obviously, sorry, this is your software, but they could create a dashboard like this in any of their tools they'd be using for
sure,
this type of
absolutely.
project. Yeah,
Yeah, we're just trying to show the way we approach it, but
yeah,
again, these are just the building blocks that we would recommend you use when you do this on your own.
right, good.
So data collection, let's start with that. What we're going to be able to see is we're going to look at the specific information that has been received for the refresh, right? Now these are, again, this is just demo information, but
Hmm.
we're looking at customer master information, we're looking at the sales information, we're looking at inventory, all the things that in this particular view of a cost to serve have actually been established as what's important for this particular model. We also can see that, who the actual owner of the data is. So we have the name of the owner, we have the contact information for the owner, and then we do a simple, red, yellow, green flagging that says, hey, we're about to do an update
Okay.
in the next 2 weeks, and we've got problems in inventory, sales, and inbound freight. And so what you want to be able to do is get back to those sources of data and say, hey, we have the schedule, the executives are looking for this update, we have a problem. But more importantly, you want to be able to identify what the problem is. It's not just we have a problem, but this is the specific reason we're calling that out. So it's not just the actual timing of the receipt of the data, but as I mentioned before, you want to actually start checking that data and getting back to them with what those issues might be.
Okay.
Does that
So
make sense?
accountability for getting the data, but starting the accountability for the validation of that data, that
That's
subset of data. Okay.
That's right. And letting the system look for what issues it can find in order to be able to not again have to go through reams and reams of reports,
Right.
but be able to pinpoint it's this particular product or it's this particular time period of time. There's something wrong here, or at the field is blank. We haven't received anything. It's anything that would be the first step in being sure the integrity of the data is there.
So we were just going through a report that was fed all the way through a process into an executive S&OP meeting, and the supply value for a family went from 500 to 5,000, and there was no discussion of how that happened. It just showed up, and obviously, for a whole family to go from 500 to 5,000, that could have been caught by a computer, even as a kind of a at least something that needs to be looked into. So
Right,
you're
right.
you're saying that if you can use the AI in your analytics tools, that's helpful to do that as well
Well,
here.
because people are busy. They don't have time to spend
Yeah.
weeks and weeks on the data. You want to make that hours. And so
Okay.
you want to design it in order to make it that efficient. So
Okay.
let's go back to the dashboard and look at the next step. And so now we know we have received all the data, if you will, and we know that there are issues with it. And now we want to do that systematic data validation.
Okay.
So let's just look at that real quick. So what I'm doing here is I've gone through the process of the customer actually or the company actually knowing that all the data has been received. We've used the machine learning, and now we want to display back to the subject matter experts the information that's associated with their particular area. So as you can see on this screen, we have shipments, we have facilities. I'll just scroll over so you can get a little bit, and this is just our way of doing it. You have the
Hmm.
spend by type, you have sales information, inventory information. And again, you're publishing this to the people who know sales, who know
Right.
inventory, to be able to say, how does this look? Now, there's a really important criteria here that we haven't talked about, and let's just point that out for everyone and look at sales for a minute. So now people who understand what we sold have this view in front of them and is showing us the actual units shipped to each customer. So in this case, the customers are organized, as you can see,
Hmm.
by silver, bronze, gold, typical ways of doing that. By load size, as far as how much product was being shipped to them, by the mode of transportation, whether it was parcel or LTL, etc., and being able to look at where it came from when they actually sold the product, where did it come from to be delivered, what was the delivery type, and where in the region was it actually shipped. So again, this is just an example.
Yes.
A lot of people will have different ways they want to do their SMA
And that's
validation.
based on the individual subject matter area that the SME's in
That's
charge
right.
of or is accountable for. So that's important to know. This is all based on their internal operational methods that they use in that particular area that subject matter expert
That's
operates in.
right. But it can include transportation data, as an example, from 3PLs, if that's a relevant part of the operation. You really don't want to limit what data you need. You want to be able to
Right.
say, I want all data that's relevant to my operation, whether it's my internal data or external data, to be sure that you have that complete picture that we talked about,
Right.
looking for opportunities on that end to end. But the point I was going to bring up about data assurance is that if you look down a little bit here, sometimes, if you're processing 4 billion transactions, and you do have some problem areas, sometimes it's just not worth the time to hold up the entire refresh to
Right.
be able to catch, a few problems here and there. So our approach to that is we set tolerances associated with what's acceptable for all data, for each data field, to say, if it is within this range of performance, the data's valid, up to, only a few records, we will pass the data. And again, those rules for whether you pass or fail should be established for your organization, not cookie cutter. But in this example, you can see we have a very large number of units that went through the sales process that actually passed the validation step. And
Okay.
we have a few that failed. But when you look at the percentage, 1.6%, 1.4%, there's not a lot of data elements that you would be overly worried about. So do I want to wait on refreshing the system
Yeah, it's
in order
confidence
to be able
level.
to, yeah, for that? And so we will set those tolerances up so that, in fact, we're not wasting time on a few little problems, but we're really getting the big picture back to the executives and to the organization.
Okay. Good.
But
Yeah. Keep going. Sorry.
Well, no, that's what we're doing in data assurance. We're looking at, how do I keep track of, let me go back to the dashboard. How do I keep track of um,
Sorry.
what's been received? And we start to look at what the problems are with regard to things that we can catch early on, again, to speed up the whole process of making sure that the data is actionable.
Hmm.
We then go to looking at systematic data validation, where we're doing the machine learning and we're having the actual opportunity to have the system work on our behalf and look at the ways that we can find things prior to going to the next step. We're transforming that transactional data into our model, your model, for a cost to serve and net landed profit, the way that is most meaningful for you. And we're finally taking that information, going back to the subject matter experts and allowing them to say, hey, in a matter of hours, this is good or this is not good. But when we are done, and you should never refresh your cost to serve and net landed profit model without going through these steps. But
Right.
when you do, then you have confidence in the information. The organization knows that, and you can make it actionable and tackle the problems that everybody is facing today.
And so just to reemphasize, this is all step one that we are working on today. The ready, creating data confidence. Those four components, you repeat those every time you need to create the data confidence for actionable decision making later when we get to step 3 and 4.
That's right. That's exactly right. And then what we'll do when we go into the other steps, we'll talk about, the actual transformation into cost to serve at step two. We'll talk about then some of the sample ways that people use that information to solve the pressures that are extreme for companies today, and then
Yeah.
measuring it over time. So that's the four-step process that we recommend.
Okay. Well, I'm sure folks are learning a lot already and excited to hear about step 2, which is going to be the next live stream that Richard and I do together. And we hope you've enjoyed the amount of information we've given today. And if you have any questions, we're both available on both LinkedIn and I'm on YouTube too, and Twitter and Facebook. So this is streamed all four of those platforms, but LinkedIn is probably the place that most folks watch these. Feel free to reach out to Richard or myself, Richard Sharpe or Marshall Henley, for more information. And I don't have a date yet, Richard, but we'll make sure that we're ready to go in June sometime. I think we can both commit to June for the next.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we hope this has been useful for everyone. It's a very important topic and one that a lot of companies are looking at.
Yeah. Yeah. My clients certainly are. And I'm really happy to have you as a resource. So till next month, thank you for watching. See you next
Thank you.
time.